Hello and welcome to Solo Chat, the gathering for marketing experts and organizational leaders that want to get to sold out status. I'm Kay, the marketing associate here at Above Promotions. Each month we will cover tools, innovations, policies, and strategies to help you sell out of products or reach capacity with your booked services. This month's chat will cover overcoming privacy changes for ad campaigns with Ebony Vaz. We'll discuss how your campaigns can keep up with the never ending changes in privacy regulations and offer you, the listeners, a way to continue the conversations at the end. Be sure to listen all the way through for the details. Our guest for today is Ebony Vaz. She is the founder and CEO of Above Promotions, one of the few marketers in the world with an engineering degree and published research focused on human behaviors and statistical data. She is going to share with us tips on how you can overcome privacy changes for ad campaigns. Hi, Ebony. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Kay. Thanks so much for getting us going here, despite our technical difficulties. So, for those that are listening in, yes, I am utilizing Ron Vaz account instead of mine. Not sure why Twitter wouldn't let us get through, but we're going to keep moving. And I think I'm so glad that we have you, Kay, to keep us going. So, let's get started.
All right, so our first question right here is what privacy concerns should we take note of in making marketing decisions?
So I want to start with small businesses. I know that some small businesses have not quite fully moved over to using email marketing platforms. So that is one immediate thing that I think that people need to do when as they're looking at marketing their business and what to do with all these privacy changes that are amongst us, making sure that you have an official email marketing platform, making sure that you've gotten permission for all those email addresses that you've used. There's a lot of things that are coming down the pipeline. And this is one of the reasons we wanted to have this conversation today, right? So, what we have is it's this perfect storm of several different or many different states making changes to how consumers' information is being handled. So currently, we know of five important requirements, five important consumer laws for privacy that are going to take effect in 2023. So we have California, Virginia, Colorado, Connecticut, and Utah. So when we think about, going back to your question, what privacy concerns should we take note of? These are the concerns that you have. So if you are a business in California, Virginia, Colorado, Connecticut, Utah, if you are going to sell products or services in those to those to residents in those areas, you have to be taking a look at what type of email marketing tool you're using. You have to take a look at is that email marketing tool actually getting the consent from the people? And let's say you did move over to an email marketing platform. Now let's talk about, did you get permission to add people to that email newsletter? Because oftentimes people think, oh, such and such emailed me, so it'll be fine if I add them to my mailing list. No, it's not. You need to get permission. You don't just assume that you've met somebody at a networking event that you can go to their house and walk through their front door without announcing yourself and knocking. So you have to assume the same kind of things when it comes to those people who may have emailed you once or casually. Um, the other thing is that people really need to take care of and make sure that they know if their audience that they want to target are Apple or Android users. right? Because Apple made those changes and they had the gave all the users privacy and then said if users want to go back and give their information, then they can. So that affected a lot of marketers that were running campaigns at the time, and it's still affecting people trying to figure out. So when you're thinking about the question, what privacy concerns should you take note of when you're making these marketing decisions? You're thinking, what email marketing platforms am I using? You're thinking about, did I get consent from those people? If you're not quite sure if you got consent, let's go back and ask them. And if you lose people, you lose people, but you'd rather lose people than to get fined. Because the fines are not necessarily going to be cheap or in your favor. Um, I can't remember if it's Virginia, and I'll pull it up or in a second, but we are looking at possible $7,500 fines from a consumer complaint. So this isn't just let it's okay. I've been emailing them in the past. It's fine if I keep emailing them. You really want to cover yourself. And and then you also want to know the reasons you're reaching out to consumers and the reasons that your customers need to know whatever information you want to share. So I would say that those are the top things that the concerns that people need to make note of for making marketing decisions. They need to make note of their email marketing platforms. They need to make sure that they receive consent. It wouldn't even hurt for them to go back and get consent again, it's particularly in those 5 states. And knowing the reason that they're serving ads, and if your customer persona is using Apple or Android product.
Yes, I have been seeing that recently, like the privacy changes that Apple has been imposing for their to protect their users, and also that is such a hefty fine to receive just for like sending an email. We should really be careful. So what marketers should why marketers do you think should care about this privacy rulings aside from getting these hefty fines that
Yeah, I mean, no one wants to, as a business, learn that they have fines against them, and most certainly no agency wants to know that they've gotten their clients fined. So, besides understanding that those 5 states have some rulings that are coming out, you have to understand that these rulings are going to affect the platforms that you use. These platforms are starting to make changes. They're starting to send out updates, and truly, it is we're at a disadvantage. We are 50 states plus territories. And so we've got 5 states coming out strong saying in 2023, we're going to be making some tough decisions to protect the privacy of our residents. So, in doing that, this means all of these major players, we're talking Microsoft, Google, we're talking MailChimp, all of these organizations that are used to providing services for businesses, they're having to go and make updates. So, understanding what these rulings mean will help you to understand what features you may lose with some of these platforms that you're using, what features you might start to gain, how you're going to have to change how you analyze data and the data that you actually have access to. Those are things that are definitely affecting the privacy ruling. And then we have to think about how people interact with brands, and how can we measure effectiveness of ads. We like to say that if we can have someone click on a link, we can track where they came from, we can track where they went afterwards. Did they buy from a competitor instead of us? A lot of that data is going to change. We may no longer know that John Smith is the one that's on our site. We will just know that someone came to our site at this time. These are the pages they clicked on. And then they eventually gave us their name and email address. And now that data that they gave us, we're a first party. We now own that data. And so I definitely tell people that is the way to go. That is the utmost importance, is to make sure that you're owning the data. And you can only do that by actually getting permission from the consumer. So when we think about what marketers should care about with these privacy rulings, it is definitely how are you going to move from knowing a lot of information and understanding that you had all this data to try to analyze, to knowing that now you may not know the name of the person that's interacting with your site. You may not know if that person is even coming from some of the campaigns that you have, because we're taking a look at what we call moving to a cookieless environment. And so now, when we used to be able to track people across the internet, all we're going to know now is there's some ID of some entity or person came to a site, and this is how long they spent time. We could get a general idea of like their location, but we're not going to get that level of detail that we got before. So marketers, businesses, owners, they should really care about what's going on with these privacy rulings outside of having to face fines, and they also need to care about how they're going to reach consumers, like those consumers who have opted out of getting ads when they browse on the website, or to those consumers who are using web browsers that don't even have ads. So there's a lot of changes that we have to make, and we have to rethink how we are going to reach new people, as well as rethink how we have reached people in the past.
That's very great insight, Ebony. I really like how you were able to give us a very detailed information on why we should really care about the privacy rulings. Because, and also, I was also thinking like, how do advertisers invade the privacy of consumers? Because it's really like a lot of people nowadays, since we have been going on the internet a lot, like there are people who are using ad blockers, and then like they're thinking like, hey, you are invading my my privacy. Like, how do that happen? How do they?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, we talk about, I mean, and invade privacy. Invade is a very strong word. There are people who are true spammers, and people who are true con artists, and people who are trying to fish and stuff like that. I kind of consider those as the people who are invading. So I wouldn't know if I would say invade, but I do believe that those companies who are buying lists of information without knowing the source of the list, that can be intrusive to consumers. I know that companies are asking for information that's really not pertinent to their brand, and then they're sharing that information with other people. So I'll give a very good example. One of the sources I would say does invade the privacy of consumers is a lot of the apps that we see on, that can be downloaded to phones. Some apps are being downloaded from Google Play Store, and some apps are being downloaded through Meta's platforms. And so we in Apple Play Store, and there are some apps out there that will say, hey, this is a free game. Well, the game is free for you because you're not paying up front, but it's not free for you because you're giving your information, your data to this company, and they're more likely a broker and turning around and selling that data. And so when I think about invading consumer privacies, I often think about those types of apps. When I think about companies that ask for more information than they need, I think that that's not necessarily invading, but I think that they're collecting information that could put them at risk of hacking and giving more information out there to bad actors than that needs to be there. So Yeah, invade is a strong is a strong word, and I think in some instances we can look at it from, that standpoint, like how is the data collected? Are we collecting it with them knowing? Are we collecting it without their permission? And that's something that I think that businesses, that marketers, they have to be careful of, and it's a challenge that we're going to be facing for a while because we've gotten used to getting access to all this data, and we're just not doing that great of a job of thinking it through more.
Thank you very much for answering that. It is very good to know this specifically because it gives us an idea as marketers and business owners on how we can avoid this. So, how do we protect the privacy of our consumers as, business owners and marketers?
hmm So I would say one, we have to select legitimate apps to use for marketing customers. Um, and again, that is, there are a lot of people who have started, have created tech apps and products and things just to show that they could do it, and then they'll put it on different sites, and but they never do come to fruition, but the app is still available. So I think when we look at some of the bigger email marketing distribution companies, when we look at some of the bigger CRM tools, these bigger companies, they have invested the time to understand the privacy laws, and try to keep these needs and things in mind. What I will say is that apps that have a good understanding of the privacy laws, those apps that are reputable platforms where the data will sit, those um, apps that have are using like an AWS in the background that has really good encryption for information, those companies that are selecting agencies like ours that understands the privacy laws, that understands that, next year is going to be some big changes, and we're working with our customers to make those changes now. I think that the other thing is making sure that the infrastructure that we have internally, because we may have some information that sits on these various platforms, but then at some point we usually download the information. So, what are we doing with that information? And um, are we making sure that if our business model is to sell to other parties, well, perhaps you need to vet who you're sending, selling those other information to. So, and I'm speaking from very different business models as I give these responses, but I think it's important that we understand that there's going to be some changes that we have to make, and um, we have the ability to really take the time to determine what is the sensitive data. We have the ability that if we focus a lot on getting first party data, the information directly from our consumers ourselves, we can still cater to our customer personas. We can still work on creating dynamic creative using A/B testing, as long as we can own the channels and we can protect the data, and we give a reason why people need to even give us their information. So I think that protecting the privacy of the consumers is also a benefit for business owners because it makes you better at marketing. It gives you a better ROI, and it protects you from getting those fines.
That's really great, Ebony. And how can marketers continue marketing effectively without having to access this third party?
Yeah, and so this is where I think a lot of companies have to go back to the drawing board. They have to make some determinations as to what information do you need in order to reach your audience. what information do you need to make sure that you're reaching the right audience? And so, as we look at buying ads in the future, we still will have the ability to say, um, hey, I'm going to use the website CNN and Fox News. We know that we can utilize a party to serve ads on those websites. We know that those websites can in turn at least tell us that the visitor where our ad was posted at was on the food page of the CNN or Fox site, or they were on the travel page. So there's still access to data that we'll have. We just won't know that that person is actually John Smith, who is visited CNN twice, visited Fox News a few times, and then he came over to our site. And there's certain data we just may lose a little bit of track of, but we still have the ability to serve up get ads. So we have to think about what information do we have to gather. We have to think about when we gather that information, what is actually necessary for us to say, we understand that we are effectively reaching the demographics that we want. And then we have to determine if we're doing that, how are our ads performing? And so there's still the you still have the ability to do testing. You still have the ability to ask for feedback on ads that people have received. I think Waze, I think YouTube has kind of been in the forefront of it because they will display ads and then they'll ask the user or the listener or the viewer, have you seen this ad? Who are you likely um, to visit this or purchase this? And so there's questions and there's ways to still get the data that you may need to create effective ads. Um, Personally, for our company, we utilize a computer vision tool, and computer vision works like facial recognition, but it does not actually tie back to the identity of a person. So computer vision can work through a Wi-Fi camera, and it can measure, look at the person, determine their estimated age, the sentiment that they have, if they're a male or a female, and it can make the ascertain the how people feel about an ad they're seeing. And so that's a tool that we are able to use doing for market research and also to help people to display the right ads in venues. So there's still tools out there that can be used, and I'm glad that for us, we're always on the lookout and testing, and then that's why people come to us because they know that we internally we treat apps into our lab and test them out for them and do the due diligence to help them make better decisions when they're creating their marketing stack. Um, but I'll go on to say that we have to still be targeted. We internally, companies and businesses, they don't have time to waste and they don't have the money to waste. And as we're looking at the economic environment that we're in, we realize and recognize that we have to make sure we make the best use of our resources. So if you go out and you ask a potential client or a consumer for their information, what value are they going to get for giving you that information? So we have to think about how we can still do our jobs as marketers effectively, even though we may lose some of that third party data. Some of those third party vendors may go out of business because they haven't figured out how to still provide value in order to help companies grow. And so um, while I definitely get why many of the legislative people are making these decisions to try to help consumers, we have to be careful. And as marketers, as business owners, we have to keep our eye out on these laws because our businesses still need to thrive. We need to be able to advertise to people. So there is a balance. And I think that, you know, a couple of the states get that it is a balance, and a couple of states probably are not understanding the effects of small businesses. And so, as we think through like 2023, and I'll just make sure that I highlight this, but California, Virginia, they're the ones whose laws will go into effect January 1. And so, for anyone that's listening, definitely go out and look at the data that you have. And if you can't tell where your first party data information, where those people are located, it's important for you to go and find out. So if you got obtained somebody's information several years ago, I would highly recommend you going back and checking with them that you have their permission, and then understanding where they're located, because somebody who could have been your consumer in Florida, they were still following you and they've moved to Virginia, that could be an issue if you don't know about it. So I know we're getting ready to come up on time here. So I hope I kind of covered everything. I really see that there's a lot of value that businesses and marketers are missing by not paying more close attention to being privacy centric, to not relying on third party cookies, to understanding how to own data and how to protect data. There's it's a lot of responsibility that we're having to do, and perhaps it's responsibility we should have kept in mind when we went down this rabbit hole before. So I hope this information has been helpful. I know 30 minutes can go by extremely quickly. Although we started a little late, we're still coming up on the 30 minutes. So I think I'll let you take it from here, Kay.
Thank you very much, Ebony. So, privacy regulations are constantly changing and your marketing policies must keep up. It's not too late to examine your current policies and make changes. Doing so may save you the trouble. What a session today. We really got to highlight some great solutions and things for our listeners to keep in mind. So we were able to cover privacy concerns that we should not miss, why we should care about privacy rulings, how do we invade the privacy of consumers, protecting the privacy of our consumers, effective marketing without having to access third party, plus the incredible resources that were shared today. We really can't thank you enough for sharing your wisdom with us today, Ebony. And we also want to thank those that tuned in. If you joined us late, do not worry. We will have this recording available on our website, abovepromotions.com. And if you'd like to ask any question about the topic of our upcoming chat, please do send us a message. Next month, we'll continue to help you get to sold out status. The next topic is revamping the marketing stack for 2023 on November 17th on Twitter Spaces here on Above Promotions Twitter page. See you then!